Chris Mannix, Yahoo's The Vertical, NBA writer. He joins us now. Chris, how are you this morning?
What's going on, Dan?
Just feeling great, dressed great, feel like $1 million right now.
Don't we all, I guess?
Yeah. Golden State Warriors do, right? Going back, Game 6. How much confidence do you have after what you saw last night?
No, I mean, it was good, obviously. I don't know that you take that and say it's this enormous springboard to something else in Oklahoma City. I thought Oklahoma City, didn't get the contributions from everybody else that they're used to getting. It was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant kind of having their way, but guys like Adams and specifically Dion Waiters, who they really need, just didn't show up in this game. Now, back home, they're a different team. I was at those last two games in Oklahoma, and that supporting cast really plays well in front of that home crowd. So I'm not sure Oklahoma City doesn't, they feel bad for the loss. They want to close this thing out, but they still have to have a lot of confidence that what they're doing is working against Golden State.
I was more impressed with Oklahoma City last night, Chris, than I was Golden State. I expected Golden State to win. I thought that they would win big and sort of ride that wave going back to Oklahoma City, but the Thunder were there with 4 minutes to go, and they didn't play well. And I think that that's why Durant was probably saying to the bench, "Hey, we have this." As the clock is winding down.
Here's the variable for Golden State is that's Andrew Bogut and how he was able to play in that game. I mean, the first 4 games of this series, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but he had led the team in fouls in the first 4 games, and. Anecdotally, I could tell you that early on in each half, Bogut had to come out early because he got in foul trouble. And Bogut's a pretty high-level defender for this team. He's I don't know if he's elite, but he's right up there among the best defensive fives in the NBA. And when he's in the game, he makes it awfully difficult. And that's tough for Durant and Westbrook, who got used to playing in the paint. I mean, look at the numbers in the paint in games 3 and 4. I mean, I think it was 60-plus points in the paint in game 3, somewhere just below that in Game 4. A lot of that to do with the fact that Andrew Bogut was out of the game. He wasn't last night, and he was there being the rim protector, and that's why the inefficiency of Westbrook and Durant's game showed in that one. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bogut can stay on the floor in this upcoming Game 5, because if he can, he presents a whole lot of problems, especially scoring in the paint.
I mentioned yesterday the Cavs and Raptors going into tonight's Game 6. That I expect the Cavs to win this series, but I would like to see them close out the Raptors tonight in Toronto. That would show me a whole lot more than they come back home and they're extended to 7 games with the Raptors. What are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, I think internally they probably feel the same way, Dan, because closing the Raptors out or winning a game in Toronto should be a lot easier than winning a game in Oklahoma City or Golden State. In the postseason. What I'm looking for is how Kevin Love plays in this game. I mean, you want to see how a lot of supporting members around LeBron play, but Kevin Love has been so up and down, and he was so brutally bad in Games 3 and 4 in Toronto. Rebounded really nicely, I thought, in Game 5 in Cleveland. Showed a lot of confidence, rebounded. His defense wasn't that bad in that game either, but he's got to be able to play in a hostile environment in a close game in the fourth quarter. They're paying him a lot of money, and they're not paying him to sit on the bench in the fourth quarter. So he's got to have a big game, and I think he has to have a big game, not for the team, because they will close out, I think, Toronto in Game 7 if they have to, but for himself. I mean, you can't go into the finals thinking, man, these close games, I'm going to be relegated to the bench because my defense just isn't high enough.
He's Chris Mannix, senior writer, Yahoo Sports, host of The Vertical on Yahoo Sports, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. All right, a couple other things here. I was mentioning the All-NBA team, and let me start with DeAndre Jordan is first-team All-NBA. Now, he's a nice player, but should we have the designations of guard, forward, center, since the game has really changed, where guys don't have designations anymore?
Yeah, I mean, they've done away with those designations in the All-Star voting, which was a big deal when they did it, 4 or 5 years ago, because back then guys like Jamal McGlure were making all-star teams, and nobody thought so. I go back and forth on this, Dan, because you're right in some ways that the game has evolved to the point where stretch fours are sometimes playing fives. Golden State has the lineup of death that is their most efficient lineup with Draymond Green at the center. At the same time, you are seeing kind of the rise of some pretty good centers to the point where the debate has been reignited about all-star voting and if they should bring back the center because a lot of qualified centers are being left off the team. So I go back and forth on it. Because of that, I think you leave it alone. I think if there are centers, and centers has been such a big part of the NBA for the last 50 years, if there are good quality centers who deserve to be filling that spot, I think you leave them right there.
Yeah, but I don't think we have quality centers. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, if he's first-team All-NBA, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Andre Drummond is a nice story, but is he the third string center or third team All NBA? I just want the five.
You don't think Andre Drummond is third team All NBA?
No, I think he's a good story, but
I think he's a great player.
He's not a great player.
Well, he's a great defender and a great rebounder.
Okay, but there's a lot of guys who are great defenders and great rebounders.
No, not on Andre Drummond's level. Andre Drummond is next level rebounder and fast becoming next level defender.
Okay, he's a great player who can't play in the final 5 minutes of a game. Are you really a great player, Chris?
No, well, look, the free throw shooting, that's a problem. But I mean, that you go back to that first round series, Dan, that against the Cavs, and I know the 3-point shooting was the story, but the 3-point shooting was a story because Andre Drummond was such an imposing presence in the middle. That was a 4-game series, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? That was a tough series for Cleveland. I thought Andre Drummond was a big part of that.
All right, we'll disagree on that. I think he's a nice story, but until he starts making more than 50% of his free throws, he's not a great player. Or even 40% of his free throws, he's not a great player. How was James Harden left off the third team or second team here?
Well, it's weird, and I think Harden was left off in part because the same reason DeMarcus Cousins was left off. The perception of these guys, the negative perception is just so strong out there, and it shouldn't always be that way. But voters are human, and not voting for DeMarcus Cousins for a specific team, that has a lot to do with the nastiness that was involved with him, with George Karl. Not voting for James Harden, it was almost a message being sent in the fact that James was a great player last year, but he was an entirely one-dimensional player who was looked at negatively in the self-destruction of the Houston Rockets this season. I think the way that the Rockets imploded, all of that was put on James Harden. Look, it's kind of balanced in that way because last year, all of it was given to James Harden. I mean, I voted for James Harden for MVP last year. He was voted by his peers, if you remember, in that weird Players Association award as the most valuable player. This year, because it all went the other direction, James Harden was given all the negative for it.
Yeah, I thought it was unfair in the criticism. If you look at the numbers he put up,
better offensively.
There's only a few guys in NBA history who've had a season like that, but I do think that we focused on his defense. When there's a lot of guys that make these teams, and I don't hear anybody saying, "Yeah, but what kind of defense do they play?" Harden, I think, maybe unfairly criticized. Now he's terrible defense, but I think unfairly criticized because.
No, I agree with you, and I would have voted for him. We stopped once I moved over to Yahoo and the Vertical. We stopped voting, and that's a separate story altogether, Dan. I don't know if you've talked much about this, about how Anthony Davis, missed out on $24 million because he wasn't voted one of the 3 All-NBA teams. Damian Lillard got an extra $20+ million because he was voted on an All-NBA team. The NBA has to change these rules to take the voting away from, or take this type of influence, financial influence, away from the media. The media cannot be responsible for for financially backboning these types of players with these awards. I mean, the media's role is not to make the news. The media's role is to report and cover the news. And by giving the media this power inadvertently, it really sends a bad message about the role of the media in the league.
How did they get this in, collective bargaining that you could?
Yeah.
I mean, Anthony Davis injured. Now I love him, but I have a hard time putting him in there because he was injured a good portion of the season, but. We knew that he could be out $24 million. The media knew this going into the voting, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, going into the voting. This was a big story.
Yes.
I mean, it was covered at length over the last few months. Will he get his $24 million? Will he not? The old Derrick Rose rule that was negotiated during the collective bargaining agreement, which guarantees, I think it's for 3 years, all NBA team, you get that spike in your salary. It's just wrong. It just really is wrong that the media plays this type of role.
But do you like this
in
in these contracts?
No.
Because
No,
I
not
like
these
a
type of
performance.
escalators.
Okay, but you want your stars to live up to these max deals.
Yeah. Well, look, I think what you do, and this is just what I would do anyway, if you could open the CBA back up and change the rules, that you have the player and the team negotiate what they think fair escalators are. So if it can't just be like X number of points, X number of rebounds, maybe it's team performance. Maybe it's a certain level he gets to shooting free throws. You give it to Andre Drummond. You say to Andre, look, you get $20+ million if you get 65% of your free throws in a given year. It should be negotiated between player and team. It shouldn't be left to some oftentimes random vote by media members.
Drummond just missed another free throw. Hey, Chris,
you're becoming a hater on Andre Drummond, Dan.
No, not a hater. I'm just being a realist. That's all.
How do you not think he's complete? Like, he is a player, one of the few players in the NBA, and that's not hyperbole, but one of the few players in the NBA where coaches consistently have to game plan for because of his presence both defensively and rebounding. That's special.
He's not a great player.
Well, third-team All-NBA doesn't mean you're a great player either.
No, you designated him as a great player. I didn't.
I think he's third-team All-NBA. I don't know that he's a great player yet. I think he's going to be. He's 22 years old.
Ricky Rubio was 12th team All-NBA. Alternate for the 12th team All-NBA. So
Tom Thibodeau needs to decide what he's going to do with Ricky Rubio, because if he doesn't embrace Ricky like he deserves to be embraced, he needs to be traded somewhere else.
Send him to Milwaukee. Thank you, Chris.
You got it, Dan.
All right, that's Chris Mannix, senior writer, Yahoo Sports.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.